Thank you so much for having us here. I really appreciate it. In Iowa, like Jay said, I mean, it's amazing here. I feel like back home when I'm in Washington State, I'm in this sea of blue, and I'm just a tiny little island of red inside of my rural area. Currently, I'm a goat farmer, and I really enjoy that quite a lot. But now it's time to do something different. I've been watching what's been going on in our politics. Our nation is very polarized and divided. And it's time that someone stands up and takes a hold of the situation and tries to bring our families back together again. We've seen a political class that is gaming our system. And it's not just the folks on the left, it's the folks on the right too. It's time that we actually sit down, have a pause, and talk with each other at that dinner table once again. We can have a conversation that is helpful and not one that is resentful anymore. So I stood up because this is what I feel our country needs to get back to its roots. We're born in a constitutional republic. We're seeing our nation, it's slowly divided into two swaths of different types of people. You've got a polarized coast on the West Coast, on the East Coast, and this heartland in the middle that seems to be still in that space where constitutional matters actually matter to you. So, why am I running for president? That's a great question. There's so many other candidates out there that everybody knows. I'm not very well known, but like Jay says, I do have the experience that I know that I can actually change a lot of the things that are going on in our federal government. I have been a federal employee for over 30 years. I started out in the U.S. Air Force. I was a very lowly cook at the time when I first started. I grew into a position that allowed me to do a lot of wargaming inside of the U.S. Air Force, and a lot of that wargaming allowed me to participate in a lot of big events across our world. And one of those events was the Desert Storm. I helped build forward operation bases in Turkey and in Iraq, and we housed and fed over 500,000 Kurdish refugees at that time. And I see a nation currently where we have a border that's open to refugees, and they're just pouring into our nation currently. And I believe that if we use the right policy and plans, that we can actually address that situation, like a refugee crisis. I would intend to get together with all of the state governors and implement a National Guard plan that would create refugee camps. We can then contain the situation that's going on. We can facilitate them. We can motivate them to stay in their home countries once they're actually sent back to their country. At the same time, if there's actually true people who need that asylum, we can have a process that can process them through that the way it should be. We can't take every single soul that comes into our country, because we also have a country here that needs to have its soul saved. Our nation is going through a lot of homelessness. It's very dramatic at our coasts. Our West Coast is being slammed with fentanyl and opioids, and that's the slippery slope to going into homelessness, unfortunately. And I have a plan for that too. I have a plan to get the homelessness off the street, clean up the fentanyl, and make that a thing that was of the past. Again, too, we have a problem with our foreign diplomacy currently. As if all you'll know, we are almost at war with Russia. Just recently, we had an issue with one of our drones and one of their MiG fighters, and it's put a lot of big red alerts in the sky, basically. I don't see a diplomatic corps that we have that's actually out there trying to talk with the Russians or the Ukrainians. They seem to be egging on this fight, like there's some kind of motivation, so to say. The motivation to push us into a war seems very dramatic and in your face currently. I don't want to actually send your children to a war. I think that's a time of our past. We don't need to go into kinetic wars anymore. We have a different way of fighting our warfare. And I believe that the domain of warfare that's currently coming up is one that is less kinetic, but it's more of a economic warfare. It's more of a psychological warfare. And we as a country, we need to guard against that kind of warfare, which brings the cyber space into full view. I've worked with the Department of Commerce doing cyber forensics. I used to be with the Office of Investigative General, and I've done a lot of investigations on cyber crime that has tried to penetrate our servers in the Department of Commerce, steal our technological data from us, steal our Office of Personnel Management's information for our agents, for instance, in the federal government. And since I have left the Department of Commerce, unfortunately, a lot of those systems have been broken into, and a lot of our federal agents' information has been stolen by China. So I believe that some of the administrative people that I have in mind that we would bring on would help secure our nation and bring us back into a place where we can actually feel safe and secure at home. We don't want anybody calling you up and asking you to refund your Amazon package that you had anymore either. So we're going to put a stop to that as well. We know who those bad actors are, and we have ways to actually deal with them. This current administration, they are not willing to actually do the things that we should see them doing. It feels like this administration is actually trying to put America in further danger and further peril. And that goes with energy security. We seem to be giving our energy security off to many different nations. And that's another one of my policies. I have an idea that would help our nation become a primary fusion power source for our country, but then a net exporter for our energy going across the world. In addition, I think our future for America, with the agricultural base that we have here, especially here in Iowa, we're very agricultural based. I see a future where we're going to be feeding the world here pretty soon. The Ukraine and Russian conflict that's going on right now, it's taking a toll on our supply chain, and that supply chain is going to hit us here at home, especially with the agricultural base that you have. Potash is a commodity that's highly dependent upon for agricultural growth. When you don't put your lands into fallow, they don't replenish. And a lot of the farmers that are doing large cropping right now, they're using a lot of nutrients, and they're putting that back into the soil. And that commodity is something that we're not going to be able to find pretty soon. And so when I do become president, I have some policies that will help out the USDA to do some crop rotations, and I believe industrial hemp should be put back into our crop rotations again. I have some plans to do some advanced material applications for hemp core that would help our building structures and get them way more robust than they currently are. So why me? Why Eric Jon Boerner? Why should we vote for you rather than one of the other candidates, say 45? Well, I'm fresh, and I'm not polarizing, and the media doesn't have a bunch of things to attack me for currently. They don't even know who I am. So it's going to take them a little while to figure out how to press my buttons, and I don't think I'll let them actually do that to me. So anyhow, I really appreciate your time, and I'm taking questions from anybody who wants